Jason Aaron and Javier Garron dive into the mind of Jane Foster as the hero awakens in a world where she's married to Thor and has no powers, making her question what is real and what is just her deepest desires. Jason Aaron continues his Mephisto multiversal Masters of Evil storyline with a really fun issue that focuses solely on Jane Foster, a character he is very familiar with. The issue does a pretty good job of the now cliched "it was all a dream" hallucination trope we've seen in countless TV shows, movies, comics, games, everything, turning it on its head with the inclusion of the multiverse and the larger stories he's been building with Avengers Forever. I loved how much of Jane's history Aaron filled the issue with, exploring all the parts of her life from the early chapters where she really was seen by many people as just quote-unquote Thor's girlfriend from Earth, all the way to the more recent versions like the mighty Thor and her current role as Valkyrie. It's a testament to how far the character has come even in just the last few years, and I love the meta pieces of this arc with Jane knowing that she can and is more than just Thor's former fling and is her own person and her own hero. I love the ending as well, didn't finish it with the whole kind of typical all is well type of ending, but one that kind of questions if Mephisto was actually successful in his plan in tempting Jane with having the power of Mjolnir and getting that power back, and if Jane actually thinks that actually works, since it ends on a really great page of her longing for Mjolnir again. It's a very interesting little bit of storytelling that I'm hoping Aaron brings back in some upcoming issues as they continue to deal with Mephisto and the Masters of Evil. Javier Garron continues to provide brilliantly colourful artwork and action. I loved how he was able to capture the early Marvel feel in parts of the story set in the dream, complete with Thor's original costume, and how Thor would act at that time in Marvel Comics where Thor was his girlfriend and he's kind of like a big bumbling idiot. On top of that, Garron's action with the two separate Janes coming together to fight the Mephistos was really well constructed, and it was just really epic seeing the mighty Thor again as well as Valkyrie with all her powers, and just combining those two sort of elements together was just fantastic. The Avengers issue 56 focused on Jane Foster and the temptations Mephisto has brought to her, culminating in a fantastic character development filled issue that builds off of what Jason Aaron had done previously with both Jane Foster and Thor's characters. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10. The Avengers issue 56 finds Jane Foster awakened from the same dream she's been having for weeks, one that sees a horse that flies towards her calling her name. She knows it's ridiculous as she awakens again to Thor asking if his love is okay. Jane knows that she is, thinking that she is the luckiest woman alive. The next day, Jane and Thor walk amongst their garden at the home hidden in the forest of Asgard, a home that was their wedding gift from Odin, who had finally accepted that he couldn't get rid of Jane. She knows that when Thor was sent to Earth to find humility, he found her, and in her found a wife. Jane bids her husband farewell as he leaves to protect the realm. She remembers how when the Donald Blake identity wasn't needed anymore, neither was the nurse Jane Foster identity she had, and she finally became what she always wanted to be, a doctor. She stops herself, knowing that that's not right since she always wanted to be a housewife and a pig farmer. She thinks her pigs give her the creeps though, thinking that she can hear them giggling at her when she turns her back on them. Jane goes about her day, knowing that it gets lonely without Thor being there with her, so she began painting, always painting the same thing over and over, a being with golden wings and a hammer but with a distorted face. Suddenly she is overcome by a headache as a strange feather grows from her back, but it passes as quick as it comes, knowing it will all be fine. Later on, Thor returns home, and over a hearty feast he tells Jane how he fought Loki and prevented him from capturing Jane. She wonders if Loki did something to the hammer since she can't hear its voice in her head. Thor laughs, wondering why she would ever hear the hammer's voice in its head because she isn't Thor, repeating his name over and over as Jane becomes unwell, retreating to her room. Later on, as Thor sleeps, Jane goes downstairs to find the hammer, knowing a voice echoes out from it like a storm thundering in the distance, telling her that she was meant for something more. She goes down to touch Mjolnir as Thor appears, demanding to know what she is doing. annoying. Jane picks up the hammer with ease, knowing something is wrong and she needed to know that everything was the way it is supposed to be. Thor knows all is well and Mjolnir knows her well since she is his wife, but Jane knows that the hammer isn't Mjolnir. She smashes the hammer against Thor, blasting him out of the home as the hammer breaks, and Jane follows after him, knowing Thor is not what he says he is. Thor really hoped that he was, as suddenly he begins melting, knowing that he really did love Jane, as Mephisto's voice tells Jane that she had no idea how sweet this deal was, and she's going to wish she would have taken it. Suddenly, the 3 pigs in their garden morph into 3 Mephisto variants, finding Jane is stronger than she looks. One of them knows that this was a waste of time and they should have just killed her, but the others know that the council rules state temptation must come before the fall. Suddenly, another Mjolnir falls from the sky, but Jane thinks it's another false one. However, suddenly it fires lightning at the Mephistos, blasting them back as the mighty Thor arrives. Jane wonders if she always looked that cool as the 2 Janes meet. Thor wonders what it will take to make Jane believe it's truly her, but Jane believes her already, not fully understanding how, but she just knows. Thor tells her an explanation of what's happening will have to wait as they confront the Mephistos. Thor asks where Jane's weapon is, but Jane reveals she doesn't use a hammer, she uses the all weapon. She uses the weapon to smash a Mephisto in the face as the mighty Thor joins her sister, beating back the Mephistos. Soon Jane begins experiencing another power as armor begins forming over her with golden wings. She tells herself in one point in her life she was love-struck and thought of being Mrs. Thor seemed like a great dream, but then she grew up and became a doctor, a mother who had lost her child, a woman with cancer, a goddess, an Avenger, and now a Valkyrie. She knows that she doesn't need to dream anymore since she's too busy living. Knowing that they are beaten, the Mephistos teleport away, telling the Janes that they will see them again once infinity turns red. The spell that trapped Jane begins falling apart as the women escape. Thor tells Jane that the Mephistos have been targeting Avengers with their temptation traps all across the multiverse, as Jane knows the last thing she remembers, she was flying through the nether realms in search of Ghost Rider, knowing Mr. Horse must be so worried about her. Thor knows all about Robbie Reyes, knowing Avenger Prime says he's driving a car from Earth to Earth recruiting Omni-Avengers to help defend Infinity's End, and some say he's now the All-Rider. Jane wonders if this Thor is her future, but Thor says that she's just from a different reality where she never stopped being Thor since her Odin's son gave his life to win the War of the Realms, and there must always be a Thor. Thor wishes that she could stay longer, but chaos is spreading throughout the multiverse thanks to the Masters of Evil and Doom rewriting the worlds. She knows that she sensed Jane was in trouble, but knows something is telling her that she would have been fine on her own. The Janes shake hands, knowing Janes are usually fine on their own and they'll need every last one of them before this ends. Thor tells Jane about the multiversal Masters of Evil and their attack on Avengers Mountain, along with them working for the Council of Red, as well as the God Quarry where Avenger Prime stands guard before leaving to rejoin the fight in the multiverse. Jane quickly finds how much she missed the mighty Thor when she leaves, allowing herself to float in the darkness for a while, listening to the thunder from Mjolnir until it fades. Jane returns to Avengers Mountain where she tells the other Avengers what happened. Tony knows that he has fought Mephisto before as well, asking how she beat him. Jane, however, isn't so sure she beat him, wondering if the Mephistos really were stupid enough to think that they could tempt her by giving her a life as Thor's wife, or was that the true intention of that? She mournfully looks over at Mjolnir, the hammer that is no longer hers, as Tony continues to try and shake her from her thoughts.